네, 여러분 안녕하세요. 저희가 하나의 인터뷰를 더 가지고 또 왔습니다. 휴고 요리스 그리고 위고 요리스죠. 위고 요리스, 마크 도 산토스 LAFC의 골키퍼와 그리고 감독님을 우리가 만났고, 이번에 만난 분은 여러분들이 좀 뜬금없겠다고 생각하실 수도 있어요. 많은 분들이 LA 갤럭시, LAFC가 아니라 LA 갤럭시의 골키퍼 코치 케빈 하트먼, 전 LA 갤럭시 골키퍼이자 국가대표 경험도 있는, 미국 국가대표 경험도 있는 골키퍼를 만나고, 골키퍼 코치님을 만나고 왔는데, 저희가 사실 뜬금없을 수 있잖아요. 그냥 또 뭐하니 LA 갤럭시 골키퍼 코치를 왜 이분들이 그분을 만나고 왔을까?
네네네.
저는 좀 소개 좀 해주시겠어요? 이분의 역사를 좀 간단하게.
네.
왜 우리가 인터뷰를 했습니까?
그 MLS를 보시는 분들은 좀 이해하실 수도 있겠지만 이제 갤럭시가 굉장히 이제 6번이나 우승을 한
그렇죠.
MLS의 큰 팀 아니겠습니까?
네네.
근데 이제 이분이 조인하시기 전까지는 팀이 우승을 못했어요. 가히 MLS의 버펄로 빌즈라고 할 수 있을 만큼 3번 결승전까지 갔으나
네.
3번 패배하고 막 이런 와중에 갔다가 이제 이분이 팀에 조인하게 되면서 MLS 우승을 이제 그 이후에 6번이나 달성한
네.
계기를 만드신 분인데
네.
그것 때문에도 중요한 분이긴 하지만 더 우리한테 중요한 이유는
네.
홍명보 감독과
홍명보 감독님이 2002 월드컵을 우리 한국 대표팀의 주장으로 마친 후에 포항 스틸러스를 떠나서 LA 갤럭시로 갔죠.
그렇죠.
거기에서 홍명보 감독의 그때는 홍명보 선수였죠.
그렇죠.
바로 뒤에서 골키퍼를 맡았었던 선수가 바로 케빈 하트먼인데,
맞습니다.
근데 이 시간이 이렇게까지 지나갔고 이분을 기억이나 하겠어 이렇게 생각하실 수도 있어요. 근데 요 인터뷰 내용을 잘 보시면은 기억을 하신다는 걸 아마 금방 아실 수 있을 거고, 그리고 홍명보 감독님에 대해서 사실 홍명보 감독 얘기를 하기 위해서 그게 가장 큰 이유 중 하나였죠. 우리 홍명보 감독에 대해서 우리가 좀 알지 못했었던, 뭔가 좀 의외라고 생각할 만한 면모도 우리가 좀 들어볼 수가 있었고,
맞아요. 네.
그리고 이제 홍명보 감독님 외에도 저희가 또 한 가지 또 인터뷰를 하고 싶었던 거는, 이번에 저희가 위거 요리스라는 골키퍼를 인터뷰했고, 맷 프리즈라는 미국 대표팀 주전 골키퍼를 인터뷰를 했고, 이번에는 굉장히 베테랑 골키퍼 코치를 인터뷰를 했는데, 왜 했느냐, 미국이 이제 골키퍼를 굉장히 국제 무대에서 경쟁력 있는 골키퍼를 배출하는 나라로 이제 유명하잖아요.
네.
그런 것들에 대한, 근데 또 미국 골키퍼들을 보면 현대 유럽이나 남미에서 얘기하고 있는 그 트렌드에 따른 그 골키퍼 스타일들은 또 전통적인 스타일은 또 아니에요. 미국 골키퍼들은.
네네.
그래서 그런 부분에서 이 세계 축구의 골키핑 어떤 그런 트렌드의 흐름을 미국에서는 어떻게 보고 있는지,
네.
그런 거에 대해서도 이제 요리스, 맷 프리즈에 이어서 우리가 케빈 하트먼 코치한테도 물어봤거든요. 예, 그래서 이제 한 약 20 몇 년 전인가요? 이제 23년, 24년 전에 선수로서 만났었던 홍명보 감독이
기억.
또 이제 언어 장벽이 있기는 있었지만 리더십 같은 것도 있었다는 걸 볼 수가 있었는데, 재밌는 얘기도 좀 있을 거예요. 한번 보시면 굉장히 좋을 것 같고, 또 골키퍼 관련된, 미국이 골키퍼를 이제 육성을 하고 또 지금 그 중심에 있었던 MLS 최고의 골키퍼 중 한 명이었거든요. 현역 시절에. 그 중심에 있었던 선수 출신 골키퍼 코치의 견해, 이런 걸 좀 들어보는 시간을 가졌으니까 축구를 좋아하시는 분이라면 좀 즐기실 수 있을 만한 인터뷰가 아닌가라는 생각이 드네요. 네, 이번에도 또 인터뷰 보고 오겠습니다.
So today on the show we have two-time MLS Cup champion, three-time Supporter Shield winner, two-time US Open Cup winner, and 1999 MLS Goalkeeper of the Year, Kevin El Gato Hartman on the show. Welcome to Fairpoint Football, Kevin.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. The world knows the LA Galaxy as a team that brought David Beckham to MLS, changing the trajectory of the club and also the league. But you were part of the team that won the championship for the first time for the LA Galaxy and set this culture of winning with the club. How proud are you about being part of that journey to set the tone for what the club is today?
Yeah, I mean, it was a group of players that a majority of us had come through UCLA and from the Los Angeles soccer scene, and we were supplemented by some really top quality international players.
Yeah.
And from the early years, almost immediately, we were in MLS Cup finals. In '96, we were in an MLS Cup final, '99, 2001, and it took until 2002 for us to win it. So while we did kind of set the pace of the bar for what the standard was within MLS, it took us a little bit longer than anticipated to get that first trophy. And Thank goodness for Carlos Ruiz and his ability to score in added time at Foxborough, so that we could kind of get that monkey off of our back, and really just what a great group of players that we were playing with at that point, and also, you know, what a culture that we began to kind of cultivate.
Yeah. The most impressive aspect for me of your play as a goalkeeper was your aggression, coming off the line, instinctively closing down opposition. Is that also what you try to instill in the group of players that you work with today? Or do you feel like the game's moved on, changed a bit so that your approach has to be a bit adjusted for modern players?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. I always wanted access to saves.
Yeah.
And I felt that if I was back there on the line and I just waited for the game to come to me, that wasn't really anything I wanted to be a part of. And as goalkeepers have gotten to be 6'6", 6'7", and you know, there's a level of trying to separate themselves from the ball a little bit. They sit a little bit deeper.
Right.
They're more upright. They make foot saves. Whereas I always wondered, if I'm in an explosive position and my weight is maybe on the balls of my feet, sometimes it's difficult to get that foot out to make a foot save because I'm ready to explode and go into a corner.
Right.
So yeah, there's certainly some adjustments that have happened within the game. I still want my goalkeepers to be sweeping in behind the defense. I still want them to be very proactive. I want them to find ways so that they can justify playing.
Yeah.
I don't want a passive goalkeeper who just is interjected into the game occasionally.
Right.
I want a goalkeeper who is a leader. I want a goalkeeper who is has solutions to offer his teammates. And I want somebody that's going to come and eliminate indirect goal scoring opportunities. So if you can cut out a cross before it becomes a shot, I'm all for that. So I still would love to see my goalkeepers nice and connected to the group and trying to access saves so that they can prove their viability within the game.
Awesome. Talking about sort of dominant defensive players, for the subscribers of our channels in Korea, Hong Myung-bo's decision to come to the Galaxy at the end of 2002 here in between the off season was remarkable. At the time, the US League, the MLS, was relatively unknown in Korea. Although we had Cho Young-jung, who played for the NASL in the early 80s, nobody had really ventured off to MLS prior to Hong. So how big of a deal was it for you that he was joining the club at the time? He joined obviously as a max salary player at that moment. So what was the team's expectation when he came to the team?
I mean, Hong was a player who, you know, in the World Cup became the third best player in the tournament and led a South Korean team to fourth place finish. And I think all signs at any point are gonna point towards you know, the fact that you want as many quality players within your group as possible.
Yeah.
And so the reality is we knew he was a quality player. We knew that he was going to bring fans to the stadium, which is always something where you want to solidify a home field advantage. And
Right.
we knew that Koreans would come to the matches. And so we were excited about that. And so there was a real sense of intrigue about what the 2003 season was going to bring. And we were all really anticipating the opportunity to meet Hong.
Awesome. So as a player who could observe Hong directly right behind him as he played, what were your impressions of him as a player? If any qualities stood out to you as he was marshaling some of the defensive units?
Yeah, you know, like I said, I mean, I'm not a quiet guy behind my back line. And so I think I'm trying to place players where I want them to be, and I felt like I probably had to communicate with him less often than some of the younger players. His breadth of experience was something that really allowed him to really not just navigate things for himself, but to assist players around him. And he did a great job in terms of how he was able to I would say the amplification of his voice in key moments and the intonations that he used, I thought were fantastic. And so it wasn't always in English, but you knew that there was something was going on that you needed to kind of raise what your stature was going to be within the game, and I love that. I think that for me, that's one of the most important things that you can get from a center back is a nice, loud voice who's offering some solutions to the problems and the scenarios that are presenting themselves.
Interesting you talk about kind of his communication skills on the field despite the language barrier, and obviously I think we know from a lot of different sources that his English wasn't amazing at the time, but as a center back, I played center back, not at a high level, but communication is key. And when you have that challenge, I do wonder like how your defensive unit was able to deal with that. Obviously on the field, but off the field too, right? Because you're making these connections on a social level and a personal level. How was that experience for you when he was around, and do you feel like your teammates gelled together nicely off the field as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime for example, we're here in La Quinta, like starting to team build for the 2026 season, you try to have these moments where you get the players together so that they have the opportunity to grow as a group. Obviously, language barrier is difficult. Fortunately, Hong had a translator that was able to assist him in some of that. But more often than not, Hong's a guy who leads with his heart. He's a guy who, from all my experience with him, was that he cared, that he was a family man, and so for me, I knew that he was trying to do his best, and that's all that you can really expect from somebody is to, try to do their best to integrate into the group and share experiences and really try to be able to work with the guys around you. And I always felt like he went out of his way to do that. And I know that when we went to the Peace Cup over in South Korea in 2003, he was trying to get guys unique, Korean experiences. So, there was certainly an off the field gelling that went on, but the game's the game. I mean, any big club in the world that you play at, there's going to be people that speak a variety of languages, and that there's ways that you can learn to kind of navigate that. And, the game speaks for itself, and you can point, you can have different volumes of your voice. There's a ton of different ways that you can kind of deal with things, and I felt like he did an admirable job within it.
Awesome. Any fun memories from your trip to South Korea, or any anecdote that you can share?
It was certainly, for me, it was an unbelievable experience because, I mean, the World Cup had just happened in 2002. All the stadiums were unbelievable. We went into our draw was against Nacional of Uruguay. We played against 1860 Munich, and then we played against PSV Eindhoven, and we actually, in the first two games, had gone to scoreless draws. So we go into the third game, and we haven't been scored on yet, so we're feeling pretty good about ourselves. And if we can just get this result against PSV Eindhoven, then, we're through to the next round.
Wow.
And I believe they had Robin playing with him at that time. And
Robin,
I think we sent Alexi Lawless actually out there to kind of man mark Robin on the left wing, and I'm not sure that was the best choice of approaches. But yeah, they eventually, I think, won 4-1, if I remember correctly. But Chacon scored a goal in maybe the 16th minute or so. But yeah, I mean, for me, it was easy to see how appreciated that Hong was within the community. He promised us support, and the support came. We were a well supported group there in Korea, and. I mean, we obviously spent most of the time in the hotel room, but we did have the opportunity to kind of explore just a little bit, and it's a beautiful country, I just remember vividly going to some type of a hotel lobby bar or something, and it was kind of overlooked the whole city, and just how beautiful it was.
Yeah, there's like mountains everywhere in the city, so you can get some decent views. Hong will be returning to the United States this year as the head coach of South Korea. So all the North America, I should say, because all the group matches will be held in Mexico because they are in Group A with the hosts. But if they do make it to the round of 32 as the second place team or third place team, as the second place team, they'll be here in Los Angeles. So as a fellow coach with extensive experience playing in the Americas, are there any pieces of advice that you would give, any tips that might be helpful?
I'd be reticent to act like I'm going to give Hong Myung-bo a lot of coaching tips, but he's a person that's done it all, right? I mean, he's learned from Dick and Pim and some of the top Dutch coaches, and has been to Russia. He's been to the China Super League. He's done it there domestically within Korea, and he's coached at the international level. So, I would think that familiarizing himself with kind of what the what the layout is
Yeah.
of the stadiums, and
Yeah.
all the legwork that they'll do ahead of time will give them a great opportunity to find a great place to set up and, and a home base, and beyond that, you know, I mean, it's about, you know, trying to make sure that they've analyzed each one of the opponents as well as they possibly can, and
Yeah.
come up with some strategies and be able to evolve the game
Yeah.
as it comes. You know, they always say that the first half belongs to the players and the second half belongs to the coach.
Coaches, yeah.
So being able to make those in-game decisions and being able to try to shift momentum within it is really important. And you know, he has all of our support.
Yeah. I mean, one of the biggest things that talking points we've been talking about is about altitude and dealing with that in Mexico. I mean, you have obviously extensive experience playing in CONCACAF. Do you think it's a meaningful and a big factor when it comes to performance at an elite level?
Yeah, I think it certainly, altitude is a huge issue. I remember preparing in Colorado Springs for a qualifier
Yeah.
ahead of some of the World Cups in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And, it was interesting because we brought an entire group in. We were in Colorado Springs for 2 weeks, and about 2 days before the game,
Yeah.
they brought everybody from Europe, and so I don't even know if very many of us ended
Yeah.
up playing. But yeah, you're always trying to figure out, does it make sense to arrive, you know, right when it happens? Does it make sense to be there weeks in advance so
Yeah.
that you can kind of acclimate yourself? There's a bunch of different theories, and obviously they vary because are all three of the games going to be in Mexico
They
City?
are, yeah. Oh, not
so-
Mexico City, so Guadalajara and Monterrey.
Yeah.
And if we reach the last 32 rather, I just keep getting this wrong. Last 32
Yeah.
as the first place team will be in Mexico City.
Yeah, well, yeah, Mexico City, the altitude is certainly going to be an issue. You
Yeah.
know, and I'm not envious. It's a difficult place to get results, especially if you against Mexico, because they're so well supported. But it'll be great to see
Yeah.
how many Korean fans come in and join in the festivities.
Yeah, it'll be exciting.
Yeah.
We've had the opportunity to sit down with Hugo Ruiz and Matt Freeze this week actually, in the last few days, and we'd love to get your input on this because you're one of the best goalkeepers ever to play in the MLS, and we talk a lot about trends where goalkeepers being able to play that passes behind the back to start offensive attacks. The likes of Tim Howard and Lloris have told us previously that stuff is really good to have, but it really is down to goalkeepers not losing their sight of their primary job, which is to stop shots. So as a keeper, if you have a defender like Hong Myung-bo but could pass like a midfielder, is it really that critical to have a goalkeeper that can play those passes, or like just focus on your task and stopping shots? What is your opinion on that?
Well, I mean, it's not necessarily always the quality of passers that are in front of you. It's also the quantity of players and how many the opponent is pressing with.
Yeah.
So if you're playing against 4-4-2 and they're pressing with two guys, then you roll into a 3
Yeah.
and it creates some numerical advantage that you can try to get a player into the next line.
Right.
So I would say that, you know, this is another fad, right? You have
Yeah.
this fad where I'm like, well, why don't you just take a central back if you don't care about shot stopping and put him in goal?
Put him in
why
goal,
don't
yeah.
we just eliminate all shot stopping? But the reality is that your ability to keep a ball out of the goal is tantamount to the success of your team, and I've always been confused. I mean, like, God, man, the amount of time that I spent just working on being able to keep the ball out of the goal defensively, I'm not sure that I also had the capability or the time
Yeah.
to become the main playmaker within the team.
Right.
I mean, there's never been a higher expectation of a goalkeeper in the world of football, and I'm always perplexed with, you know, the tasks that they're handed again and again, and you know, what that expectation looks like. But the reality is I mean, goalkeepers have always had broad shoulders, and you know, the way that the systems lay out, there are some escape mechanisms within it. But yeah, I mean, I think part of it is, you know, trying to find somebody that has the possibilities of being able to play out effectively alongside of a great player like Hong Myung-bo, so that you can manipulate numbers in good ways and get people forward with the ball into the attack.
Yeah. Options are good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So as we wind down, last two questions. We also talked with Lloris about how the U.S. is just a factory of elite level goalkeepers. We looked at. I remember when Eric Ronaldo previously said goalkeeper. The goalkeeping position is the one position that the U.S. has never screwed up. Why do you think that is the case? How does the United States do it? What is it? What is the U.S. goalkeeper different from anybody else? How do you assess that?
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to try to put it into one box. But I would say at some point we, beyond the fact that we're a very, hand coordinated sport type country.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that those things obviously help from the early ages, but I would also say that we had the ability to get into coaching of goalkeepers. Maybe we recognize that specialist coaching maybe earlier than a lot of countries. And the reality is in the United States, a lot of the stories that I heard from my generation was that we were going to these specialized camps put on by Soccer Plus and by Joe Macknick and number one goalkeepers, and they were, 100, 200 kids a week.
Right.
They're going through these highly specialized trainings that, Franz Hook is involved in. And this is, from early to mid 80s that they're starting to run these specialized courses and camps on goalkeeping. And, I think that, you take a good information and you exponentially increase the quality of athletes that are already working in spaces that have hand-eye coordination type things, and I think that it's a good recipe.
Yeah.
And certainly a lot of countries have caught up. A lot of countries have surpassed what the United States is doing right now with their goalkeeping, and I think the entire world of goalkeeping is a bit in turmoil based on what is the important thing. Is it keeping the ball out of the back of the goal, or is it being able to start an attack? And it probably is going to depend from team to team. You look at Man City, and they were able to deal with Ederson, who I felt like was probably just an okay shot stopper, but he was fantastic with his feet, and his ability to play out of the back. And so, one goalkeeper that's in one environment, having success may not have success in a different environment, and you're really talking about the minutia of it and trying to figure out, what makes the most sense within the player profile that's been created for your group. And so, it's not easy, and I would say that, Matt Freese is obviously somebody, Matt Turner, somebody that is kind of on the cusp of being a part of this group, but it's certainly not as cut and clear as it used to be maybe sometimes when when Tim was in goal, and so those guys continue to try to separate themselves, continue to get games so that they have the opportunity to, cement themselves into the history of the U.S. soccer.
Yeah. So finally, a little bit about your upcoming season for the Galaxy as we go for a historic 7th title, hopefully. I have a little bit of affinity with the Galaxy because I used to intern for the team about 10 years ago. But losing Ricky is a big blow, obviously. But there have been strong additions to the spine of the team, I would say. So how is the group, do you think, feeling about the season? How are you preparing? And what are your hopes and expectations for the season?
Yeah, like for me, I feel like, as you said, I mean, there have been some great additions to the team. Obviously, it's disappointing with Ricky. Ricky is a player that's not really replaceable. You can look through Y-Scout and you can find all these different players that share commonalities, but the reality is his ability to dribble past a first opponent and really get into the next line and create some indecision with the opponent isn't something that you can find, and if you can find it, it's probably going to be way too expensive to be importing into MLS. And so I think we found ourselves in a unique position to have such a player, but it's just heartbreaking to see what Ricky's going through and the difficulties associated with that. The one redeeming factor is that we know about it, and now we can try to come up with some solutions ahead of time. And we're not kind of, well, maybe he'll be back, maybe he won't be back. A lot of that clarity has been solved for the year. And we have Jacob came in from or Jakob. Excuse me, I'm not great with my Norwegian pronunciations, but you know, having him come in from Philadelphia provides another strong voice within the center of the back. You know, Justin Hack has the capacity to play in the back, but he's also played some in the center of midfield. So he's another player out of New York City that plays in a similar style that we play with. And so it's good to know that you have a good composed player on the ball. You know, just the up top. You know, we've had the opportunity to bring in Zhao, so a big presence up top, and not necessarily something we've always had, but a good, strong, high pivot gives us the opportunity to work off that, play a little bit more directly sometimes. Yeah. You know, we're only in 2 competitions this year. We're in Champions League and we're in MLS League, and so you don't really have the opportunity to have any hiccups. You got to be ready to go right from the start. And I'm super excited about this group and proud of the work that we've put in thus far.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin Hartman.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks very
absolutely.
much.
It was
Yeah.
nice to meet you.